Good evening. I'd like to call to order this Monday, February 14, 2022 regular meeting of the Canal Winchester Local School District Board of Education. Mr. Roberts, would you please call the roll?
Ms. Barnes?
Here.
Mr. Butler?
Here.
Mr. George?
Here.
Mr. Kruger?
Present.
Mrs. Talley?
Here.
All right, would everyone stand for the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Are there any additions or deletions to the agenda this evening? No, there are no additions or deletions. Okay. No additions or deletions. I'm gonna need a motion to approve the agenda this evening.
So moved.
Second.
Okay. I have a motion and second. Mr. Roberts?
Ms. Talley?
Yes.
Mr. George?
Yes.
Ms. Barnes?
Yes.
Mr. Butler?
Yes.
Mr. Kruger?
Yes.
Motion passes 5-0. And we're gonna move on to presentations this evening. So first up, we have Indian Trails Elementary. We have Principal Eric Riddle here this evening.
Our CWA, which is kind of like our umbrella for our positive behavior intervention supports, along with our standard operating procedures and our expectations. So in collaboration with teachers and with some of our students, and the help of Mrs. Beth Henshaw, our school counselor, she put together a video. It's about a 6-minute video that kind of highlights our expectations for what the students do in the hallways, on the bus, the classrooms, going to lunch. And we decided to make this, one of the reasons why is because our students have been in and out over the last 18 months, almost 2 years. And so we're really looking at redirecting them and providing them with reinforcement of our expectations, which for our age group is necessary. And teachers now have this video, so they'll be able to use it if they feel that their class needs a little reminder to provide more expectations to them. There we go.
Respect self, respect others, respect property. Line up quietly on numbers when the whistle blows. Mulch, rocks, and sticks stay on the ground.
Good luck with that.
Sadie, what's one reason you might have to go inside on the playground?
To get hurt. I'll ask the teacher.
Always important to go find that teacher, right? You can never go inside without asking. Kinsley, what's another reason you might have to go inside on the playground?
Maybe you have to go to the bathroom.
We should always include our friends, right?
Right.
Because if we didn't, what would happen?
They would get upset and they wouldn't be our friends.
Yeah, then Palmer, what if somebody comes up to you and says, do you want to play tag with me? But you don't like tag, so what should you do?
Let's play this game and say it nicely.
Yeah, say something very nice like, no thank you, but can we play something else? Because you don't have to play something you don't want to, but it's important we use kind words, right?
Yeah.
Say,
sanitize your hands before eating. Go directly to assigned seats. Line up following the CWA. hands and feet to self. Go directly to assigned seats.
Thank you.
Raise your hand for permission to get up. Walk on airways to return to class quietly. I'm looking forward. Maintain social distance. Keep hands by your side and feet to yourself. Voices off. Quiet feet. Walk on a single file line on the right side. Go to the first open restroom and do your business. Flush. Warm pump of soap. Use the hand dryer without talking to others. Believe in yourself. Use school supplies correctly. Listen to others. Clean up after yourself.
Good afternoon, Indian Trail students. We would like to close out the video by talking about our bus behavior. Our bus behavior has improved this year, but we still have room to continue to improve on how we behave and act on the bus. Mrs. Cobb's going to model for you the perfect way to walk up the steps onto the bus and sit down. A few things to remember, students, as you can tell from our model bus rider here, Mrs. Cobb, she has her back on the back of the seat, her bottom on the seat, and her feet on the floor. Her eyes are facing forwards. She's not getting out of her seat. She's not rolling on the floor. She doesn't have her feet in the aisle, and she's being quiet. And this is all important so that the bus driver can get you home safely. Thank you. Part I'm just going to tell you right now. Those videos and the students involved, and again, one of the other pieces we want to address was the bus behavior, but we have seen some improvement in that area. But it's just a video that we can have and continue to use this year or next or whenever. Any questions?
I just love it, and
Thank you.
kudos to all the student role models.
Yes.
They do a wonderful job.
And we find it's important to have those peer models for them to
Yes,
look at.
for sure.
Yeah, thank you.
I like everything that I saw. I thought it was really a good, important information to pass on to us. How do you deal with the kids who don't necessarily fit in those models, who have learning behaviors and things like that? How do you work with them to help them improve and become more a part of the everyday situation that you want to do?
Well, our teachers, they're the tier 1 intervention. We provide them with these type of expectations, and we're going to have students. Obviously, that was, they know they're being filmed, they're doing it the right way. But, whether they redirect, reinforce, have a conference with them, then if behaviors continue, then that's when possibly myself or Mrs. Henshaw, our school counselor, or Mrs. Cobb get involved. And if necessary, if we get to a situation where we feel we need to provide even more intensive intervention, then we're looking at behavior plans. This is what we need to do, maybe some sort of incentives for those students. But for the most part, 99% of our kids do it right.
Great. Thank you.
You're welcome. Anything else? All right.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Riddle. And moving on to our second presentation this evening is going to be the Canal Winchester Esports Recognition.
Yes. Coach Wyatt.
Coach Wyatt.
Coach
Here this
Wyatt,
evening.
come on up.
Whatever you got up.
Yeah, bring them up, absolutely.
Good evening. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. My name is Ben Wyatt. I am the head coach of the esports team at the high school. We are entering into our third season starting on March 3rd. This group behind me, they ended up in our second season winning the state championship for League of Legends, which is the #1 esports game in the world. League of Legends, other than the Super Bowl, is the most watched sporting event in the world. So this group was able to go in. We didn't really have expectations really of state. It was just kind of to play the best we could play, and they went and beat Hilliard Davidson, and then you guys beat St. John's Jesuit, and then we were able to eventually beat Oberlin for the state title. So these guys have put in, and we're proud of our whole team. We started with 20 kids. We have almost 50. We went from 3 game titles to 4. We just added a 4th. And I'm interested to see what we can do if we can repeat. If you guys have any questions for us, but that's kind of our gist.
Yeah, we'll get a picture.
Yeah,
Can you
picture.
just talk a little about esports, a real quick overview, because I'm not sure if everyone understands
Okay.
what it's all about. Yeah.
So esports, especially for these guys, is becoming more and more important as the years go on. So you were seeing initially around $500 to $1,300 worth of scholarship money. Now we're seeing partial to full scholarships. That's 1 to 2 years worth of advancement. So for these guys to really have a chance to not only to do what they love, which is to play video games, but to do that at a competitive level against other schools, and also hopefully provide a platform for some of them to eventually go on, whether it's, even a little bit of money is more than nothing, right? So I think that for a lot of these guys, if that's what they want, they can really do it. So, like I said, esports is only going to continue to grow. And I know we've talked, we want to try to get it to the middle school level. We want to try to get it to the elementary level and even rec if we can. So.
Do you travel?
So we have once. That was kind of iffy when we first started last spring. We were remote, completely 100% remote. We did go for the LAN tournament in the fall, so that was in person. But now we're back to more in-person attendance as hopefully things get a little better.
Since you're using the word sports, is the Ohio High School Athletic Association involved or no?
So they are getting involved with our league and other national leagues. So this is an emerging thing. They're trying to figure out as far as varsity lettering versus not. But I know that they are trying to make headway with officially recognizing it as a sport.
When I was at Ohio State, they had a competition with computer electronics and sports. Do you guys participate in that?
As far as our league, we do. We're a state-run league, so it's all Ohio high schools. Over 300 schools participate. Should we join a national league? That's something that we could look at too.
And then when does your season run, just out of curiosity?
So we actually have a fall and a spring season. So our fall season starts right at the beginning when school starts, runs to the end of November. Playoffs were in December, early December, and then we start back up again in March. So we have almost 3 months off. but we still practice. We have weekly practices. So
You
gonna
said
keep
there's
it going.
4 games.
4 games, yes, sir.
Which are those?
So we play Rocket League currently, Overwatch, League of Legends, and then we just added Valorant, which is a pretty popular esports title.
And a lot of, I don't know if these kids are yet, but I know a lot of kids are actually earning some freelance income at this young age.
Yeah.
Just for people wanting to watch them play. You know, they're swiping cards and logging
They're
in
streaming,
the sites,
yeah.
which is incredible that that's available.
Exactly. Yep, and we're very thankful for. So that's a testament to you guys. Thank you very much.
Is there any cost to the school district for this?
There is. For these guys, there is not. So they're able to go, and we have everything provided for them. Like I said, we have a really nice lab over at the high school. It's 41 West, if you guys are ever over there, downstairs by the new gymnasium. We have really nice computers set up for them, and it's worked out really well.
I was going to say, what are we missing for the program? I mean, from you or from the students' perspectives.
Things we need.
Yeah.
Well, I'd have to sit down with you and look over stuff on it. I mean, that's the thing with technology. I just bought a new computer, so it's always changing. Now, more than anything, it's hard to get stuff. So even if you want to get stuff, but that's something I would love to look at because we could always upgrade, whether it's jerseys, whether it's transportation, anything.
Okay. So part of the Mr. Hoffman, who's our technology director, works on the rotation of computers, monitors, and the esports lab is part of that.
Okay.
Because their computer screens are much higher
Exactly, resolution. And Mr. McGurko, Mike McGurko's done an amazing job for us. He's any question I have, I can text him. He's there 10 minutes. So he's been really great.
Is there a pay-to-play fee for the kids as there is with other sports?
Not currently. The only real cost is the cost of the game. Okay. So Overwatch, I think, is on sale right now for $9. So, I mean, League of Legends is free to play. So.
Can you also talk about your recruitment and retention
Yeah.
strategies? Because I know you said you started off with a lot more.
Yep. So the biggest thing was getting the word out. We'd never obviously had anything like this at our school district. We have kids that game. We have kids that are interested in technology and electronics, but we didn't have that foundation set in place. So our first year amongst COVID, we were trying to figure out, well, how do we make this the best we can make it? That started and ended with these guys. Really. A lot of leadership. One of the best things that somebody's told me about these guys is the coach of Hilliard. He sent me a message after we beat them, and they were pretty upset. It's the state tournament. She goes, your kids were so respectful, and they supported each other, and they helped each other. And as their coach, even if we would have lost, that's all I can ask for. So we've seen a lot of that. So what's keeping our kids in esports? These guys. I can only do so much as their coach. So that's how I would answer that.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
How do you guys feel about being in this? Does this help you with motivation for doing your other classes and things like that?
Yeah.
Do you think it's a big motivation?
To start off, we have like a little normal thing where like Mr. Y will check our grades. We'll make sure we have a good enough GPA to even play. Mm-hmm. So we'll start off, and that'll motivate us to make sure we're doing fine in our classes. And then after that, like, long day of school for us, we have practice right after. That's a nice de-stress for us to go home, finish our homework, continue studying, anything else we need to do for that.
Thank you.
Mr. Wyatt, do you make them run suicides?
Do a lot wrong. So as a former football, I can do that. But maybe some kind of like typing game or whatever they can type fast. I don't know. Yeah. Can you guys just say your name?
Jeffrey Kelly, 11th grade.
I'm Trisukusol, I'm a senior at the high school.
Sivan Bangsavat, and I'm a junior.
Matthias Knopfsinger, and I'm a junior.
And Cameron Moreland, and I'm also a junior.
Thank you, guys.
Congratulations. Thank you. Yep.
Right here. Yep. And you could face the audience so they can get a picture.
You have to have a lot of hair to play esports.
Hey, I'm getting a haircut. We just had a baby.
Okay.
Oh, that's right.
Some nice locks. A little jealous.
Do you get one, Kaya, for the? Do we have one?
Thank you very much.
Thank you, guys.
Congratulations.
Good job.
did take a picture and tag us in one of the, like, Twitter or one of the things, so we can get that, or send it to one of us by email. Thank you.
Thanks. All right. Thank you very much. And we're going to move on to our third presentation, which is the CWEA this evening.
Hello, I'm Brittany Link, the CWEA Vice President. CWEA fully supports that the best place for our students is in the classroom with their teachers. However, the changes made again to our daily schedule, while there's no violation in the contract, are very taxing on everyone, including your teachers. Specifically, the teachers at Indian Trail have expressed concern and feel that they are being asked to take a huge hit when it comes to changing the start and end times of our day. They have a difficult time with schedule changes in normal times, and now we are having to change it for the third time this school year. While it may not seem significant to all, the change in the school day to end 25 minutes later impacts the students greatly. They will be up at the normal time and then expected to remain engaged in their learning until 4 p.m. in the afternoon. The teachers and students will also be making changes to their daily schedule, including related arts times, enrichment and intervention times, lunch and recess. Many teachers at ITES feel that with every change that has been made, the teachers and building administration have adapted, changed, and made it work, but that a true understanding of how much time, energy, planning, and resources used to make and implement the changes are not fully understood. Please know these teachers want their students in their classrooms each and every day, but the ever-changing demands, lack of clear, timely communication, and on top of the ordinary demands of our jobs are taking a toll. We ask that the decision makers in the district make a true effort to talk to the teachers of this district. Ask for their input, ideas, and support as regularly as possible to inform decisions being made. But we understand that we may not always get what we would like, but knowing that we are being heard and listened to certainly makes the changes easier to take. Finally, we want you to come to the buildings, spend some time in the classrooms, and see the efforts put in by each and every person working to make this district successful. Just know that the daily grind is hard, we are weary, and we are struggling to feel appreciated. And here are a few highlights from some of the awesome things that are going on in the district.
Sorry about that. Hi, I'm Kevin Barhorst. I teach high school math, and I'm here to present on what's going on in the district at the various buildings. At Indian Trail, kindergarten has learned about Martin Luther King Jr. and Groundhog Day. In Wonders, they're learning how plants and other living things grow and change, and continuing to learn about nouns, verbs, and pronouns. In math, we are learning about different things from sorting to addition and subtraction. And they were looking forward to the Valentine's Day card exchange, which I assume happened today. Mr. Spriggs, Miss Solar studied various different versions of a Tolstoy story, The Big Turnip, and each student planted seeds after discussing what plants needed to grow. We are using an observation journal to track and record the seeds' progress. We also discussed Groundhog's Day and made predictions on if the groundhog would see a shadow this year and graph the results. Many students were able to predict the groundhog would not see a shadow since Groundhog Day this year was in a rainy and cloud-covered day. At Winchester Trail today for Valentine's Day, 5th grade students created placemats for each other to use at lunch, placemats to use each other at lunch. Students were given a random student within our classes, and they had to write at least 5 positive adjectives that describe them and then decorate the placemat how they wanted. We laminated the placemats, and students got to use them today for a special Valentine's Day lunch and had them to keep. It was the perfect lesson in kindness and practicing their grammar with the use of adjectives. They loved the surprise and cherished their placemats. In middle school, the Canal Winchester Middle School Library is transformed into the Coretta Scott King Illustrator Award Book Gallery. Students were being introduced to this prestigious award and had the opportunity to browse and examine more than 70 books which have won this award, including this year's most recent winners. This is part of our school's Black History Month celebration. From Mr. Furness in the middle school, we started the first middle school jazz band, first time in a long time. We had our first rehearsal today. In the high school, Mr. King's Business and Cisco Academy students recently competed in the Region 14 Business Professionals of America competition. The region's made up of 10 schools and 768 students. Most students competed in tested events at their home school, but we had about 200 students compete in judged events that were hosted at Canal Winchester High School. They had 26 students place in the top 8 in their categories, and 13 of those qualified to compete at the state competition in March. Also, from Mr. Furness, in high school, we had a solo and ensemble this past weekend, and our students received top scores from their performances. That's all I got. Anybody has any questions? Also, I had many students that showed portrait of graduate compassion to me today after the Bengals had that tough loss last night. So I appreciate that.
So I have a question, I'm sorry. So when did the schedule change notification go out to the CWA members?
Well, officially, we had building meetings at each of the buildings.
Okay.
And it went out to parents Thursday around 5 p.m.
Right.
So.
To the teachers, when did you guys have the building meetings? Thursday? Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And is there a feedback mechanism for you guys to provide feedback?
No.
Okay. Okay.
Thank you.
All right, and we're going to move on to our executive reports this evening. So first up is our treasurer's report.
Good evening. Unless you have questions, I do not have anything tonight.
Anything? I don't want to rush through this. Does anyone have any questions for Mr. Roberts this evening?
Is it pretty much like consistent with the financial report that we heard last month? You know, obviously with the figures changing, but I see we are currently in the positive as far as cash balances and all of that.
Correct. Yeah, we're trending to the forecast very well.
Yeah. There aren't any stark differences between this month and last month.
Yeah. If you want to review it and follow up with any questions, be more than happy to answer those.
Certainly.
Mr. Roberts, I don't want to make you feel like we're rushing past you. Does anybody have any other questions for Mr. Roberts before we move on to our superintendent's report? Okay. Awesome. Well, thank you, Mr. Roberts. Thank you. And now we're going to move on to our...
Well, thank you, Mr. Butler. Good evening, everyone, and welcome to all our viewers. And let's not forget Happy Valentine's Day to everyone. Before I get started, I would like to introduce at least the one member of my student supervisory group. Tori Ron is here tonight. Tori, is Haley here today? Do you know? Oh, there she is. Thank you. So they're both here. So thank you for coming, ladies. Take good notes, and we'll discuss this at our next meeting.
What are their names?
Tori Ron and Haley Greeley. Did I say that right, Haley? Yes. Okay, 2 items I would like to discuss as part of my report. Both these items are on the action agenda for later on for the board to vote. The first one is about our mask metric, which is item number 1. We put the mask metric in place back in October of 2021, and I believe the metric has served its purpose and has done as well. At that time, one of the reasons why we put it in place, vaccinations were not available for all students at that time. We also knew that the Delta variant and Omicron was coming on to do that. Since then, vaccinations are now available for all our students in the districts if they would want it. We are now at the point where case rates are dropping drastically, even in our school buildings. We know that we don't require it at athletic events either. If you're at the game Friday night, senior night, which is fantastic, we don't require our students to wear masks there. In our community alone, we don't have masks. If you go out into so it's not required. So when kids leave our school, for the most part, a lot of our kids are outside without masks on. We had our highest positive case rates ever for Canal during January of 238, and whether you are a district with the mask required or mask recommended, numbers were extremely high. With all that being said, I think the metric has served us well, but I think it's time that we move on. I think it's time we go back to a mask recommended type policy. We could talk possibly when that occurs. Just here are some numbers in the state of Ohio, and this is as of February 10th. There so masks that are optional for all students, it's 435 districts, where 71.4% of the districts that are in the state are now masks are optional or recommended. Masks required for some students, and most of the time that's pre-K through 8, and your high school's not. You have 16 districts, which is about 2.6%. And the last one, required for all students, like we are right now, about 158 districts were 25.9%. We're starting to see more and more districts go to a mask recommended. I think we need to give the choice back to our parents on what they feel is best. They have options for vaccinations. If they want to wear a mask at school, they can absolutely do that. Just around the area, you know, we have Hamilton Township, Pickerington, Bloom Carroll, New Albany, and Upper Arlington will eventually be going effective February 28th, and I know other school boards will be having similar discussions. So I think it's served us well. COVID's not going away. We know that. I think we have to do our best to adjust to it, to live to it, but I think it's time, you know, we got to let parents decide what they think is best for their kids moving forward. And so my recommendation is that we go to a mask recommended policy. We suspend or eliminate what we have in place now, and we could talk an effective date. Okay. Questions, or you want to wait till later? It's on the action item, so you can wait.
Well, I know we've been dealing with this for a long time, so I know that's not the only thing on your agenda this evening. So I know for me, I know that's going to come back up during action items. So I know for me, I'll probably save some questions until then.
Okay.
I didn't know if there's any other board members or a question for Mr. Sattler on this one right now.
Okay, thank you very much. The next one on the agenda item is the 4-tier bus system, where there are new start and end times for our school district. I think what's important for everyone to know is we're just not making this change to make a change. This is something that is needed. We're doing this because we have to reduce the amount of routes because of a lack of bus drivers or staffing issue. I know this is another change for us. I know it's hard for everyone. I don't want to be up here talking about it to make this change, but we need to do it. If we don't go to a 4-tier bus system option, basically what's going to happen are a couple different things. One, we will have many buses running late every single day to and from school, and not just a few minutes, 15, 20 minutes. You're talking a half hour, 45 minutes late, maybe even longer. We'll have to canceling bus routes either the night before school or the morning, calling up parents and saying, hey, bus 5, 10, 15, 20 is not running today. You got to find a way to get to school. Or we're going to have to go to some type of remote learning in some buildings. These are not good options, in my opinion. We have an option out there that we can get kids to and from school 5 days a week on time as best as possible. We always know there's things that happen. And so this 4-tier bus system will do exactly that for us. It also gets our kids back to a more normal school day in regards to school hours, so we'll gain a lot of that hour back in the buildings, maybe not quite the full hour, but it gets us back to a normal school day in regards to hours. I have Dr. Mike Bruning here today, who will talk a little bit about some of the other factors and reasons that are going into this decision.
Good evening. Couple of things, and Mr. Sattler's alluded to some of these things, is, and what I'm going to try to do is go through questions I've received already when we've gone to the schools and stuff. First of all, why a 4-tier system? And it was, as has been said, it allows us to reduce the number of routes we need. Now, the trade-off, though, is that then each bus and each driver is going to be driving a longer distance. But because, for example, instead of having a total of, say, 1,000 kids that we need to bus at one time, we're going to be dividing that not quite in half because the buildings aren't the same size, but it reduces that so that we can cover the routes we need with fewer drivers. It's not perfect because when you still go to the country, you still have to go out in the country, and so we're going to have fewer kids on a lot of buses, but it does make it more efficient for us. And actually, 2 weeks ago, ODE came out with a list of recommendations that school districts could follow to try to deal with the driver shortage, and a 4-tier system is in fact one of their recommendations. Now, how did we get in this problem? Because normally we'd have 43 or 44 routes with 6 to 10 substitutes. 3 years ago, we had that many. Over the years, there's been a gradual reduction in our substitute pool as we've lost drivers but haven't been able to totally replace. Over the past 12 months now, we've had 11 resignations. And a lot of this is a lot of the stress our teachers go through. It's sort of related to COVID, only with our drivers, a lot of them have just said, you know what, I can go do something else. And we haven't had any bitter resignations or anything like that. It's just been, you know what, this isn't for me. It's not what I thought it would be. In fact, even 3 of the 8 drivers I've hired this year have already resigned. And it's a tough job. I've also been asked why middle school first, which kind of ties into why Indian Trail last, and a lot of this is just how the numbers play out. The middle school and Winchester Trail have the largest number of riders, and if you look at the start times that we're proposing, there's only a 40-minute difference in the start times between the middle school and the high school, and about a 35-minute between Winchester Trail and Indian Trail. We've backed up the 2 largest ones, which is the middle school, so what we do is we start with the largest, which is the middle school. We then, because we don't bus in town, have ability and flexibility to then start other high school routes early, but then get everybody to school on time. At the end of the high school route set, we then have to sort of have a reset. That's why there's an hour gap between the high school and Winchester Trail start time. And then we basically we do the same thing, but reversed, where the Winchester Trail route goes out. At the end of the day, those kids are the smallest bodies. We can fit them easily 3 to a seat. I used the example before. It's kind of almost like a game of Tetris, the way all the little parts fit together. But that's, in a nutshell, without getting too much out in the weeds, that's basically why those 2 are bookends, if you will, at the end. And then the final part of this, which we actually got a newsletter from Bricker and Eckler on this, is that ODE passed a law this past year of a transportation monitoring system. It has gone into effect, and what it says basically is we must transport all kids. If we go 10 days in a semester or 10 consecutive days, we are now in violation, and ODE is mandated to fine us. We have a bordering district of ours that has already been, now they're fighting this in court, but they are being fined $700,000 for failure to transport kids. And part of what Mr. Sotler mentioned too, we have started the year with high school transportation. There is not an option to cut it at this point. We started the year with high school, we have to finish the year with high school. If we would stop transporting our high school students, that would put us in violation of this monitoring system. And I guess at that point, I realize there may be other questions. So that's all I have to say. Are there questions from the board? Or?
Well, the code that Mike is referring to with the high school transfer, where cutting buses, is Ohio Revised Code 3327.015. Transportation reductions are prohibited after the first day of school, and it reads, no Board of Education of a school district shall reduce the transportation it provides to students. The district is not required to transport, which would be our high school kids, because we're not required, but since we started the school year with it, we have to continue to provide that transportation throughout the school year. Even if it was an option, I would not recommend it. We have over 500 kids at the high school level that need that transportation to go to and from school. Not everyone has the same means that they could afford to have other transportation for their kids. And all we would do is just ship one burden from one group to another group. And I wouldn't recommend that option anyway. We can't do it right now anyway because of Ohio Revised Code. Again, this is not something we want to do. We know change is tough. No matter what decision, who goes first, second, third, or fourth in a tier system, someone's going to be unhappy with it. Totally understand that. But this is absolutely needed. This is not a want, because if not, by March 7th, we're either going to be canceling services for our kids in the district, we're going to have long delays, or we might have to go remote. And I don't think those are options any of our parents want. It's not an easy decision to make. I totally understand that. I know, I feel the frustration from our staffs. A lot of change has happened over the last 18 months. And we're just trying to deal with what we have to do with the transportation department and the staffing issues to make sure we're getting kids 5 days a week in school on time and back to really a regular school day.
And has there been consideration given to, especially the smaller children, to keep them with the same bus drivers if possible?
We are going to rebid routes just because this is such a significant change, but I know we did this one other time for a different reason back before, and everybody picked the same routes they want. So the short answer is that yes, these drivers are going to pick the routes that are the closest, if not exactly the same as what they have. But I'll be upfront, there's not a requirement for them to do so because it'll be done in order of seniority.
And then, Dr. Bruning, I have a question. So I know it sounds like for some of our parents, the change of the schedule it creates some challenges. So with this 4-tier system, will this create some sustainability? Because I think that's one of the things that parents might be apprehensive about is like, oh, they're making a change now. Is this something that's going to have to change 2 or 3 months from now? So could you speak to the long-term plan? Yeah, long-term, this is what we're going to have to do unless, per chance, we could hire 15 or 16 drivers over the summer. So the point being that, yes, this is what we will be doing from this point forward. We may very well at some point in the future pick up more drivers that we could go back to a 2-tier system. But the problem we have at this point is we just don't have enough drivers. And it allows, I said this before when we did our first change, but this one's even more so because we've had, I've had a driver that goes on medical leave the first week of March. I've got another one who had a heart attack last week. I've got another guy who's our sub who is in a federal pension. It's like Social Security. He's reaching his cap on what he can earn. And he likes what he's doing, but he's not going to do it for free. And we just have these other things that are coming down the road. So again, I've said this before, but it's an equity issue too. We put this in place, we will be able to get everyone to school. And we will not have to say, get to school if you can, because we know some of our kids can't.
How many drivers can you afford to lose in the 4-tier system before it becomes a struggle to bus in that system? We are still working. We're working on midday routes now, so we don't have everything sorted out. I would say, because hopefully we'll have 2 drivers that get their endorsements the first week of March, but that would put us in a situation where we could have 6 drivers that we could be down where we are today. Okay. And I've talked about this in the other buildings. We originally came up with a plan that allowed us to have up to 6 out. All right, the 6 out though did not include the fact that we had the guy who's had a heart attack, the guy who's on medical leave. We're going to lose a sub. So in reality, if we wouldn't make any change, we'd be down to 3 or 2. And when I say we're down to 3 or 2, once we get past that point, the wheels fall off, and we have somebody that's going to be late by about an hour or more. Okay. So this would sort of reset us back to the plan that we talked about that we changed in January. This is kind of another even more efficient way of doing it. It's just that we're going to, quite frankly, put a lot more miles on each bus. Okay. And I guess from a cost perspective, this is a minimal question, but how does this impact our cost structure on our busing?
Well, fewer buses, more miles on the bus. I don't know. I'd have to. Okay. I'm not 100% sure. Okay. You know, more, but it's kind of like you get a car every 3 years instead of every 5 years type thing. Your per mile cost might be the same or a little less, but you're going to have a greater routine of replacement. Okay.
So you're saying 15 to 16 additional bus drivers we would need going into next school year to alter this program?
Yes. We would need about 10 to get us back to where we need to be. Okay. And that'd be with no subs. So then with the 10, I'd kind of like 5 or 6, like to have at least six subs to go with them. And subs are more important than just substituting for drivers that don't drive. What substitutes give us the ability to do is when the football team or the baseball team wants to leave at 2 in the afternoon, we use a sub to do that because we're not going to take a driver off a route. Right now, I've got 2, soon to be 1 sub. So this will give us some flexibility as well to be able to move some people to be able to maybe take those games that have to leave early.
And field trips during the day.
And field trips during the day. Yeah, honestly, we haven't been able to do field trips with the system we have in place right now. And we will be able to do field trips between the hours of about 9:45 and about 1:45, which we cannot do right now.
How does our bus driver pay compare to surrounding districts?
We are, last time I checked, we were in the middle, weren't we? You remember? I saw your salary study once, in the middle, yeah. Now, the one thing we've changed with our drivers that not many other do is we used to pay a separate trip pay when they took a basketball team or they took a field trip or they did whatever.
Right.
And that was a rate of $16 an hour. We now pay them their hourly rate of pay. In addition to that, we now count those hours as part of their contracted hours. So we regularly have people now falling into overtime. And so they're getting time and a half for that. I've had twice so far with this new pay structure, I have had drivers hit 60 hours in a week, so that's 20 hours of time and a half. So the compensation is much better than what it was even at the beginning of this year.
Okay. Have we, Nick or Mr. Sotler, have we looked at any kind of incentive programs to get bus drivers in the door?
Yep, I've got it from Bricker and Eckler Legal. It's waiting.
Okay.
To finalize some numbers, sign-on bonuses, incentive bonus, recruiting bonus. If somebody was to come, that person would get the sign-on bonus, and the employee that brought them would get a bonus also.
So like a referral
Yeah,
pay,
referral
basically.
bonus.
Okay.
Yeah, so we're looking at different things. The hourly rates are competitive. The problem is when you only have 182 days, 184 days in your contract, times that hourly rate, times anywhere from 5 to 8 hours on the route, you don't get up much on the salary. So we're going to get creative on what we can do to create those more of a full-time job. So 260-day, maybe they become custodians, maybe they become different things in the other contracted days to give them more of a full-time job. So, I mean, we're open to ideas. We've brainstormed. We've tried to do everything and anything that we can think of. Problem is, and it's been every district I've been, and I think every district's facing it, you help get the CDL and they leave and take a more profitable job because it's a 260-day per year job.
Sure. So on the incentive plans that you talked about that you've been working with Bricker and Eckler on, when do you anticipate having those in place to be able to start offering?
Probably next month. I need to sit down with Jim and Mike to see what it is we want to offer as the sign-on bonus.
Okay.
Look at other businesses to see what they're doing. I don't want to just throw a number down and not be competitive with what even outside school. We need to compete with truck companies, trucking companies, not really.
Well, I mean, it's an issue, right? It's an issue across the country. I mean, there was an article a couple of weeks ago. The National Transportation Secretary, Mr. I'm going to get his name wrong, Buttigieg. I know he's looking at doing some stuff on the federal level to try to incentivize more drivers to be bus drivers and to overcome some of the restrictions or some of the things that keep people from doing it. Now, I don't know if anything's come of that. So, I mean, and I think we've all seen the headlines in the paper where, Westerville's canceling a day here or there because they don't have bus drivers. Columbus is having problems. So, I mean, it's not a Canal problem, but if we can figure out some way to overcome it. I mean, as you're looking at these incentive structures and sign-on bonuses, I mean, if there's a way to structure it where it's, payable at a 6-month mark and payable at a year mark, so we know we're at least getting a bus driver for a year when they sign on and get an incentive bonus. Maybe
those are the details.
Yeah, something to help them to help bus drivers stay for a short period of time at least.
Yeah, we have quite a few bus drivers that don't want full-time either, so we have to be
Right.
very careful how we incentivize that, because some just want to work 3, 4, 5 hours. They get 3 in the morning, 3 in the afternoon, they want the middle time off to do certain things, so we got to be very careful how we do it, because we don't want to lose bus drivers to force them to work 8 hours. So
Right.
these are tough jobs, these bus drivers' jobs. You know, people, you know, we hear a lot of emails complaining, go hire, but I don't see anyone signing up to be a bus
Yep.
driver. So, you know, if anyone is interested in being a bus driver, sitting in this room or anywhere else, please let us know, sign up. It is on our website for anyone. We pay for the training, correct? We'll
Yeah,
go
and
through
that's
it.
another change we do too. When an individual's training, now we pay them at an aid rate, which is less, but then as soon as they get their CDL and their bus endorsement, then we bring them up to the level 1 pay.
Okay.
And then they get that, and then I've guaranteed them 30 hours a week without a contract.
Okay.
Now, is that also part of, because I was reading over your district report, you mentioned that there had been changes to the application process and that was made easier?
Yes.
So is that part of that as far as the paid training?
I think
or-
it is. Yeah, because our old application system was really a teacher application, and a lot of people got intimidated when they came across word questions like, how do kids learn best? How do you, education type things that they were going, whoa, I guess I can't do this.
Okay.
Well, now we've got a much more straightforward application process, and we're getting more applicants.
That's good. That's
So,
good.
and I'm sorry, one more, I think this is my last question. So Mr. Riddle had mentioned in his presentation that behavior was much better this year. So how do we handle behavior problems? Because I'm sure the bus drivers on the routes that have behavior problems are dealing with those behavior problems every time, every day.
Yeah.
So how do we handle behavior issues on buses?
What the process we have is that the driver writes up the misbehavior. And I also, though, we've gone through and I provide them training of things they can do other than a write-up. So there's things like call home, maybe hold the child, be the last one off the bus, different strategies that they can use. But still, when it gets down to it and the pavement hits the road, if they have to do a write-up, they bring it into the office. And then someone in my office enters that into our discipline database. That database is automated so that then the building administrators in that building that the child is in, they get an email that says, this child's been written up. And then at that point, then the administrator of that building can then do the,
Okay.
talk to the child, administer discipline, whatever's.
And Mr. Stotler, do you know how that's followed up on?
With the building administrators?
Yeah, I mean, is there feedback that comes back through that database that says, here's what we did?
Yes.
Yeah, I can go in and see what the consequence was, and then they let us know as well.
Okay. Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Yeah, I mean, it's a shallow pool for the drivers, available out there, and I think that's the biggest struggle we have. And like I said before, it's a classroom on wheels, and the teachers got their back to the students. That's the most difficult job around, I think. So, getting somebody qualified and trustworthy, I mean, you just can't stick anybody behind the wheel. I mean, that's the other thing. I know we need bodies, but we need capable bodies that, can transport our students safely. Yeah.
I've used this phrase before, it's a job anybody can do, but we can't have just anybody doing it.
Have you, do you get very many teachers who not volunteer, but who want to drive buses in addition to their teaching
I've had as many as
responsibilities for some of the
3.
athletics?
Yeah, and I've had as many as 3. I've got 1 right now.
The CDL process takes how long, to go through it?
The CDL process itself doesn't take too long. Usually you can get a temporary CDL in about 2 weeks, 3 weeks. You've got to pass some tests, like on how to do air brakes, pump them down, and there's a procedure. The part that takes longer is the actual bus driver endorsement part. And there is one of the tougher things to remember is there's an 88-step pre-trip inspection. And you've got to go down through that list and say, well, I'm going to check the oil, I'm going to check the turn signals, I'm going to check the amber and red lights, I'm going to look underneath the bus and make sure the ball joints are secure. And anyway, you go down through this whole thing, but you have to do it in front of a state highway patrolman. And so that portion of it then is just like when you got your license as a kid. You go through that, and if you pass that part, then you get on a bus, and then you go do your maneuverability with a school bus. But it's You know, we try to make sure that our people are prepared. We're not 100%, but I'd say we're probably 95% past that we have them 95% plus pass that test when they go take that test.
That was one of the things that was addressed in that Secretary Buttigieg is looking to change is making that where school districts have mechanics in place, making some of those changes to where our bus drivers check in.
Well, even if they simplified it, way back in the dark ages, I had a bus endorsement.
Yeah.
And I only had 35 items on my list that I had. Well, they all made sense though. Make sure there's air in the tires, fuel in the tank, oil in the in the bus, and the whole thing. Now there's just a lot of things that they're actually supposed to get on a creeper and go underneath the bus and make sure there's different things there. And I get it that the statement is for safety, but in reality, our mechanics are the ones who deal with that stuff because we go through. The state highway patrolman does an annual inspection with a spot, so there's at least twice the patrol checks them. Our guys do them probably another 3 times. We do not rely on our drivers to catch if a ball joint's wearing.
Right. Okay.
Like I said earlier, this is a very challenging situation that we're in. It's a decision I don't think anyone wants to make right now, but it's something, it's not a want, it's a need. We have to go to a 4-tier bus system. If you approve it, we have the effective date of March 7th, 2022, of course. If that doesn't happen, then we're going to be canceling routes, late buses every day, possibly remote learning going on for the next 3 months of school.
You say canceling route, I mean, legally, we're not supposed to do that, but 10 days in a row, we can't do that? So we have to cancel different routes.
There's different leadways in there, yeah.
Which is not a good.
No, it's not. And we don't want to do that because no matter what's going to happen, you're going to upset people one way or another. And so this keeps our kids in school 5 days a week. We're going to be able to get all kids to school, hopefully, on time in an efficient manner with reducing the amount of routes and reducing the bus drivers. So.
Well, I appreciate you giving the insight. Obviously, we've received emails from a handful of folks and, really asking, do we put any thought into this?
Yeah, we've put a ton of thought.
Yeah.
Actually, when we went through this, I did look at Pickerington, who already does a 4-tier system. Groveport, which I mentioned, there's been some issues, but they're only on a 3-tier. They've had troubles with that, so that's kind of where I originally landed on this 4-tier. And then actually when we were in the middle of it is then when ODE came out, they were, hey, this is a recommendation. Well, I kind of felt good because we were already going down that road.
I was just going to say, in addition to what Mr. Kruger said, we have been reading everyone's correspondence. We apologize if we're not able to get back with you in writing, but please know that we are reading everything that we receive, and we don't take it lightly. We do take everything you say under consideration.
And I've been putting it to the right people to know what's going on, so they can make decisions and address, and which you have. I appreciate that.
I want to point out one more thing that people may not realize is we're not just talking about transporting our students. We're required by state law to transport private community charter school kids, and that's kind of where this new Ohio Revised Code comes from, is to make sure those kids are transported at all costs, no matter what it costs to the public district. Make sure you get the private and charter school kids, community school kids to school, which also throws another hurdle and bump into the road and trying to transport students. So it's not just our students, it's kids that's leaving the district to go somewhere else.
So yeah, I understand the need for the 4-tier bus system, but I'm just wondering, is there any room that can be made to adjust any of those, the middle school time and the Indian Trail time?
It's a slide rule type thing, and what I mean by that is you could move Indian Trail's finish time 15 minutes, but then the middle school is going to start from 7:15 to 7 a.m. Or if you slide the middle school's time to 7:30, now Indian Trail, instead of, around 4 o'clock, is going to be around 4:15. It's the, it's just kind of how it's working out. And we actually, I'll give a shout out to Jody Good. She's done a wonderful job because she's the one that actually came up with the ability to have only a 40-minute break for the high school, middle school, and a 35-minute break for Indian Trail, Winchester Trail, which made those more manageable. Otherwise, we would have been, honestly, probably looking at a 7 a.m. middle school and a, 4:10 or so Indian Trail. So that's the best we've been able to do so far.
So, are there any provisions for parents who have kids, like if they have kids that go into both Indian Trails and Winchester Trails? Are there any provisions to try to put those kids together on the same bus, or is there any, and let them go at the same time? Are we really going to go back and get the other kids at a different time? And then at that, are there any provisions that if the Indian Trails has to be there, or Winchester Trails has to be there at 9, can a parent drop off the other child at the same time that the Indian Trail has to be there, so that they don't have to be late for work, find a different time to get to work, et cetera, et cetera?
For the remainder of this year at least, we are going to accommodate on both ends. So we are going to accommodate at the end of the day if there's a Winchester Trail child that needs to hang around because mom is going to come pick up both of them. Same thing in the morning if they have to drop off or dad has to drop off both in the morning. There will be supervision that's provided to allow for that basically 35-minute period of time.
To allow both to be dropped off at the earliest time for both, not
and then
the
picked
later
up at the
time.
latest.
And picked up at the later time.
The building principals have contacted those that were involved in the family support already and made sure that they were, I believe, Max called, Mr. Alton called the family support individuals, and Mr. Riddle had emailed out, and I believe that was done by last Friday. So the family should have been. If there's somebody that needs that service, they just need to contact their building.
You say, Jim, 65, 85 families
At
needed
the
that?
elementary, at Indian Trail, I think it's about 50, 55 kids maybe.
55 is what
They're taking
Something like
advantage of
that are
program.
taking advantage
Okay.
of that. And I'm not sure at Winchester Trail how many kids are, not
15-ish.
about 15-ish
Oh,
maybe.
okay.
So we will continue that for this school year.
So is there any kind of comparable sort of like the family support option for the families, but teacher support for the teachers?
Well, yeah, if an Indian Trail teacher needs to have her kids stay after school, they just stay after school. If they're in Winchester Trail, they just stay. Yeah.
But also in regards to what we've heard in the CWA presentation, as far as the impact that it is causing on teachers in regards to their planning and things like that, will you be amenable to hearing suggestions?
Mr. Sotler
Going
could,
back to the planning time throughout the day. I mean, they're going to go back to a regular schedule, and I'll get more clarification what they meant on that moving forward, so
Okay.
we can clarify
It just kind of
that. I'm
seems
just
like there
not
were some
100%.
hardships that maybe not have been addressed yet, as far as it's on the teacher side of things. So,
Okay.
just wanting to know if there's going to be any kind of ability for the teachers to provide some kind of suggestions as the plan moves, if approved,
They have
the plan moves forward.
Yeah, the building principals will work with their building leadership team. So we had our meetings at the district office. We met with the principals met with the district, with their building leadership teams to discuss this plan well before anything went out. So this is a process that's been going on for several weeks now. I sent a video out to staff, not last week, but the week before. Mike and I did a video, sent it out. We met with the buildings last week and this week. And so,
Okay. So I just kind of wanted to see, what the flexibility was going to be like in this proposed plan.
well, through getting feedback and everything, that was where we actually shrunk the ends to get it closer.
right.
We're at a point now where the only way to do it would be then to shorten the student day.
So could there possibly be a survey sent to see, or is that even an option? Like, to shorten it just a little bit, if it's gonna kind of improve in other areas for the students and for the teachers?
Well, the one area where we got to be careful is we're mandated by mandatory length of day, and which is why we had to go to what we did for the kindergarten preschool. We weren't meeting hours if we were to reduce them by an hour. We're right now right at the cusp of what we would need if we carry this forward into next year for kindergarten. They're right at the 2 hours, 35 minutes.
5 minutes, correct. That's required.
So we can't really cut kindergarten more.
I mean,
I don't know. I guess the best I can say is at this point, we've thought about a lot of different options. This is the best one. Are there other things we can do? Possibly, but then this comes down to is this more important than that? And I really felt when working with Mr. Sotler and working with Jody Good out of my office, that coming up with a system that allows the most instructional time, getting kids to school on the most regular basis that we possibly can, was the most important thing to do. And you know, you don't think cutting 5 or 10 minutes out of a day is much, but then that's 50 minutes a week, and then by the time you add that up over a 36-week period of time, you know, you're talking about, you know, probably 30 hours. Yeah, probably about 30 hours, 5/6 roughly. So it adds up.
I just think it's important just to get the feedback from all the stakeholders, you know.
Okay. Does anybody have any other questions for Mr. Sotler or Mr. Bruning this evening before we move on?
All right, well, thank you very much. That's
Thank
on
you.
the action item later on.
Sorry.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We do have one more. I do have one more before we move on, and this is for the board. Last month was board recognition, School Board Recognition Month, and I just want to recognize the board members for the outstanding job they do. Board members are citizens who serve children and represent their communities. They face complex and demanding challenges as we are dealing with this tonight, whether it's a mass metric or the 4-tier bus system. Some people fully don't understand the scope and far-reaching implications of the board members' responsibilities. Too often we neglect to recognize you. So tonight, I just want to say thank you to what you do for Canal Winchester local schools. It is not an easy job. You have to make tough decisions moving forward, but we have to make decisions what's based for the whole and not just individuals or specific groups of people, because no matter what decision that we make, it's going to upset someone. But our job is to look at things globally and see what's best for the entire community, our school district. However, with that said, I just want to say thank you very much to Kevin Butler, our board president, Matt Kruger, our board vice president, Monica Talley, Vangela Barnes, and Dave George. Thank you very much. You have a tumbler there that was actually made at the high school, not the tumbler itself, but it was engraved at the high school in our what's our production class?
Fab Lab.
Yeah, Fab Lab. And then of course you have a money tree there, so hopefully that money tree will bring you some good luck throughout the year. So anyway, thank you very much for all that you do for Canal Winchester local schools. Thank you.
Thank you, Father.
Just a quick reminder, this Monday, there's no school, February 21st, in observance of President's Day. So we get a 3-day weekend, which is always nice. And remember, everyone, make it a great day or not, because the choice is yours. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Sotler. And now we're going to move on to our public voice section. Before we get started, I want to read through a few rules. So, number 1, public participation shall be permitted as indicated in the order of business and the bylaws of this board. The board requires that public participants be residents of the district, an employee of this district, or anyone having legitimate interest in the action of the board. All persons wishing to participate in the public board meeting shall register their intent in advance of the meeting and include the name and address of the participant, the group or affiliation if appropriate, and the topic to be addressed. Participants must be recognized by the preceding officer and must preface their comments by an announcement of their name and group affiliation if appropriate. Each statement made by a participant shall be limited to 3 minutes in duration, and all statements shall be directed to the preceding officer. No participant may address or question board members individually. So I just wanted to read through that before we got into our list this evening. So our first participant for public participation this evening is going to be Mr. Robert Stetman.
Kevin, you want to keep time? We don't have the clock up there.
Got it.
You got it? Thank you.
Yes, hi, I'm Robert Stedman. I live at 6460 Buckner Street. I've lived in Canal my whole life, and I have a 6th grader that goes to school here. And I want to thank everybody for just kind of seconding the superintendent's remarks. It's not an easy job that you guys have these days. I had some questions about the new schedule. I think a lot of the parents were kind of caught off guard that this email went out without any of the analysis behind it. So a lot of the questions that were asked and answered tonight at least helped me understand that there are laws in place that prevent eliminating the busing for this year. I did have a question on that though. Is it required that we provide busing for athletics? Like if we were to eliminate that, would that solve any of the timing issues? Additionally, having a student in the middle school, I'm highly concerned that he would be starting potentially 40 minutes earlier in the day. Kids, you know, they're not, at least mine's not a morning person, right? So having his education impacted by an earlier start is highly concerning. Additionally, the spring time change is the week following. So they have an earlier start one week and yet another hour start the following week. So their body clocks are going to be all out of whack for 2 or 3 weeks because of all of these changes. And to think that they're going to be able to actually get any quality learning for the very morning or the early part of that morning is probably unlikely, at least I would expect. So that's a concern there. Additionally, you know, if COVID wouldn't have happened, I'm assuming we wouldn't have this problem. So on the retention of the existing bus drivers from 2019 and the latter part of 2020, have any exit interviews taken place to find out why they didn't want to come back? Is it finances? Is it disruptive behavior on the buses? There had to have been a reason other than, well, this just isn't for me. I find it hard to believe that COVID would simply just change somebody's mind and not want to do this any longer. So I'd like to understand if there's been any exit interviews or analysis around why we're not able to retain bus drivers we had in previous years.
Get 1 minute left. 1 minute.
Yeah. Okay. So those are some of my concerns. Just kind of understanding, you know, more of the data that went behind this decision, why the middle school was first. I know it's a larger group of kids, but, you know, is that really the best interest of that larger group of kids? They're not numbers, they're kids, right? So we shouldn't treat them as a number to solve a math problem for busing. So again, I don't think this is a good idea. I get that we're in a tough position here. We have to do something, but I'm not sure that just simply changing the times like that, at least for younger kids, is the right answer. Again, thank you for your time.
Thank you, Mr.
Thank you.
Okay. And the next person is it Kayla Geiger? Awesome.
Can you guys hear me okay? Yes. Okay. My name is Kayla Geyer. My husband and I have 4 kids. Our oldest 2 go to the elementary schools. I wanted to speak to the board and the superintendent about assessing the community needs. I'm requesting that you start sending out polls and surveys to see where our families and teachers stand on these huge decisions that you're making. These decisions change our family dynamics and our children's daily routine. I remember having polls and surveys come across our inboxes. Not that many, but there were some. You would ask us our opinions before putting our district through a big change. But you have stopped asking us. You've made big decisions that change our kids' daily lives and our parents' workday. There was no survey when you decided that you wanted to change school hours. That should not happen. Why didn't you ask us parents to help you with this change? I would have given up my seat on the bus and drove my kids to school. When you established a masking metric system in November, You asked and answered questions about it before it was put in place. You didn't even plan for December winter break. You didn't even give us a survey to ask us how we felt about masking. There is a small portion of people that are willing to jump headfirst into a rash decision in these unprecedented times. Consistency is the #1 thing that defines good parenting, and it is one of the 3 C's of classroom management. If you think parents and teachers are going to tolerate this school hour change without saying anything, you have misunderstood Canal Winchester residents. Just because you throw up your hands and say these are unprecedented times doesn't mean we will accept mediocrity. It is not unusual, unprecedented, unique, unparalleled, or the first time you have made big decisions without asking us or without majority rule. My aim with the surveys and polls is to refocus you and help you figure out what your district wants from you. So you can help our kids and stop guessing and going through trial and error tests. Thank you for putting in the hours. Let's get back to listening to our teachers and parents. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And our next person is Mr. Michael Yanati.
Thank you for allowing me to speak. I'm Mike Yanati from 6000 Waterloo Road, Canal, Winchester. I'd like to thank everybody here and basically thank the community and everybody involved for a lifetime in education. I want to thank the Canal Winchester schools and everyone associated with it. I wanted to speak last month, but I wanted to let the dust settle for the new board members. I want to thank Kevin and Matt, Monica, and John Messler, because I worked with them, and new board members for their role. It's not an easy job, and it's not taken lightly by anyone. While we didn't always agree, we always dealt it with professionalism and with good communication, and basically, I can't say how much I respected each and every one of you. I'd also like to thank Jim Sotler and Kai Hunt and Nick Roberts for their roles in the Canal Winchester education family. Education has certainly changed in my 44 years. Yes, Matt. It's become so global, so many different facets, and it's not an easy job. And so I want to thank everybody in the school because they've had a dramatic effect on my life. It's ironic that I came here to Canal Winchester because I didn't even know where it was when I came to interview in 1978. And to make it even worse, I'm all prepped with lesson plans, the whole 9 yards. And Bill McCann, who was principal, had a heart attack that night. So I had to go over to the White House that's over across the way, interview with C.A. Miller. He was out cutting grass on a tractor. So the interview lasted 20 minutes. I drove home, said there's no way I got this job. So when I got home, there was a voicemail, on an answering machine, saying come back and sign a contract, and I did. So I never thought that I would be here. So I signed a contract to teach social studies from 7 through 12, coach football, baseball, and basketball in my first couple years. Now, all those people had a tremendous impact on me. I'd like to thank Bill McCann, who made me a better teacher, Mike Locke, who I survived coaching with him and teaching with him, who taught me so much about classroom management, and Barb Harrison, who I copied a lot of what I did from her. I'd like to thank all my kids and all the people and all the support people, because without them, none of this would have ever been possible. And they are worth their weight in gold. And I just want to thank everybody for everything. 44 years in education has meant everything to me. It's been a lifetime. Thank you very much.
Mr. Yanati. And then our next person on the list is Becca Dalso. Did I get that? Dawson. Okay. All right. Thank you.
Good evening. Thank you again for allowing me to speak to you tonight, once again from the heart of a parent. It is disappointing that we are still fighting to make medical choices in a school setting for our own children. Our children, teachers, and staff being forced to wear a mask in the Canal Winchester Local School District does not match anything in the rest of the community where we play, eat, worship, or visit. The rest of the community has turned the page on mandates, and it is time the district do the same. To showcase what the rest of the community is doing, I'd like to walk you through a normal day, a normal week for our family in Canal Winchester, where this has been the norm for a while. It starts off early for me at our local gym where our middle school son is also a member. We don't wear a mask whatsoever, along with most of the members, and the employees give us a wave and then leave us alone to work out. They are also not required. Then I head off to work in the field of education, just a few miles from here, and work all day without a mask, as does everyone else. After a long day, I will pick up my kids, and we might stop by the grocery store, Meijer, Walmart, just 2 miles from here, and complete our shopping without a mask. The manager, also unmasked, smiles, we talk for a few minutes, then he leaves me alone to do my shopping. We'll stop by the bank, shoe store, pharmacy, orthodontist, get our hair cut, and we'll never put on a mask. For dinner, we'll stop at a local sit-down place where we are given great service, and they never bother us once about a mask. The employees don't wear masks either. On the weekend, we'll attend a sporting event in this district, and we are not forced to wear masks. Everyone will leave us alone about the choice to not wear ours, just as we will with them. Later, we might take the kids to the trampoline park, the movies, bowling. We aren't forced to wear a mask. We meet up with friends from local school districts like Pickerington, Bloom Carroll, Hamilton, New Albany. Their friends tell them they're not forced to wear masks at school. On Sunday, we attend church right here in Canal Winchester, where we get to worship without a mask. I teach the kids' classes with every student, with almost many students in this district. Not one child is in a mask. Everyone will respect one another's choices to wear theirs or not. The data says kids are at an extremely low risk of severe illness from COVID. They're not driving the spread of COVID to adults. If they are age 5 and above, they have the option to get vaccinated if that's their choice, their parents' choice. There's no reason to treat kids as if they are a threat to public health. Furthermore, there's no solid evidence to prove that masking kids is an effective strategy in mitigating COVID. In fact, there's more evidence stating the contrary. The only reason children are still being forced to wear masks is because they are mostly compliant. It has not been about their health, and I think that is utterly cruel. We have entered year 3 of this chaos, 700 days today, to be exact. So as I close, in the simple words of another frustrated parent, if the masks work, then why don't they? Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Dawson. And our next speaker is Mr. Paul Markoff.
Good evening. Thank you all for your service to the Canal Winchester School District, and thanks for the time to speak tonight. I'm going to follow up with the mask mandates as well. And I think I took the wrong tact the last time I came and spoke at the meeting, or at least the wrong angle. It really shouldn't be my responsibility or anyone else's out here in the community's responsibility to convince you that our kids shouldn't be wearing masks. It should be your responsibility to convince us why our children should be wearing masks. I sent each of you a link at a column in The Atlantic that was co-written by an infectious disease scientist, a Oregon Health and Science University School public health official, and also an emergency medicine doctor. They all wrote about, I think it was 4 or 5 studies throughout the country, which came to no distinct conclusions about the effectiveness of masking school children in that setting. So I don't have anything to add because, again, I think it's your responsibility to sell us on why children should be wearing masks, not us selling you on why they shouldn't. So I guess my first question is, what comparative studies or analysis have you done or can you bring to the table to show that masking is effective in school districts? Again, area school districts, I know some, which the previous speaker mentioned, don't have any requirements. What comparisons have you made with similar school districts that are both imposing a mask mandate and those that aren't imposing any mask mandates? And then following up on, and this isn't directly related to the mask, but outside of the school board meetings and emails, have you solicited any feedback from district parents, teachers, and the students themselves? Because they should have a voice, the kids should have a voice as well. And then what metrics will be used to determine when masks are no longer needed? What will be the threshold for no longer requiring masks? Because as far as I can tell, I know you were using it seems like some arbitrary metric to decide when the masks go on the kids and when the masks are just recommended. And I believe the last school board meeting that I spoke at was in October. And at that meeting, it was the board's determination that masks were going to be required. And then we hit the Omicron variant came out. And as far as I could tell, it was running pretty rampant through the school district in spite of the mask requirement. So it doesn't seem to me like there was any correlation between masking the kids and stopping the spread of the Omicron variant. And if you paid any attention to the national news, they're saying that the masks that many people are wearing here tonight are not effective in stopping the spread anyways. That you would have to wear a more stringent mask, which could cause, further complications for the kids. So I look forward to hearing your responses to my questions later in the school board meeting. Thanks for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Markov. Our next public voice is going to come from Krista Hull.
That's me.
All right.
Good evening. I usually don't need a microphone, but my voice carries. I guess I'm coming at this from a different perspective because I am a school teacher. I teach third grade in another district, 24 years, so I've been doing this a while. And we don't have a mask mandate. Thank you, Jesus. So I am getting, but we did have one last year. And I will tell you that unequivocally, it is amazing to me how different the kids interact with us without a mask and how different we interact with them when we're not wearing masks. I've been trained in LETTERS, which is a phonemic awareness program, and a very large percentage of that program is based on the placement of your tongue when you're reading, when you're pronouncing syllables, your lip movement, and all of that is stifled when you're wearing a mask. So when you're looking at school-age children, particularly K through 2, the masks do hinder their education. We have a program we do, it's called Second Step. And in this program, it's a social skills curriculum that we use. And a large premise of it is about reading facial expressions, being able to understand by looking at somebody when they're upset, other children when they're scared. How do you interact with a person when they're showing those features? All of that is stifled. I wasn't going to talk today because I've been up here and we've talked about the science, and honestly, it gives me a headache anymore. It's like, this side is saying, 0.00 microns can be spread or not spread, and I'm sure you guys are getting tired of hearing about it too. I mean, it's just, we're constantly being inundated with it. So my premise tonight is to just make sure that you understand that these masks are hurting our children. They're hurting them. So if you're going to mandate them, we better sure know exactly why and have a whole lot of reason behind it. And just to end with, the other day I was going down the hallway and one of my students from last year when we did have to wear masks was saying, Mrs. Hall. And I stopped, and I'm telling you, I didn't recognize her for a minute because her smile was huge. I didn't know she had a big smile like that. And it broke my heart. Kids that,
I had last year, I didn't have as much, I don't feel like I knew them as well as my kids this year. I had no idea that a mouth from the nose down can tell you so much about a child. When they're scared, when they're angry, when they're embarrassed, all of those things you lose with the mask. It's hurting our kids. I promise you that.
Thank you, Mrs. Hull. The next speaker we have this evening is Mr. James Witt.
Hello there, I'm James Witt. I'm a local resident and a parent to 2 young elementary age children here at Canal. I just prepared a speech. I'm going to try to rattle it off in 3 minutes here. Just want to provide you all a helpful, friendly reminder. I'm not sure if any of you are medical, behavioral, occupational, spiritual health experts, but that really doesn't matter because that's not a part of your roles and responsibilities as board members. I don't know if any of you stay attentive, up to date on the news and the landscape of current events. Whether or not you've felt the seismic shift of public opinion these past few weeks towards COVID mandates. Regardless, that still doesn't matter because it's not a part of your duties as board members. What I wanted to remind you of is that you're merely just elected to these temporary positions, chosen by us to be board members of our little school district. You can speak no more intelligently on this matter than anyone else here. Your personal opinion about masks is just as valid as mine and everyone else in the district. You have all the power because of the seat you currently hold, but it's vital to remember that your decisions alone affect every single student, employee, and parent. I'm pretty confident that I speak for most when stating that I'm extremely exhausted by the data, the stats, the numbers, percentages. Many people are obsessed and infatuated with these numbers. In my opinion, it's very wide-ranging, confusing, sometimes debatable, misinterpreted data that leaves many holes and variables left unexplained. Public health departments push these numbers with their concluded guidance, recommendations more or less, and then you still have an inconsistent number of school boards out there choosing to take that guidance as a rule of law or like it's the word of God. All are constant and they're never going away. It's never going away because that's just how some of those in power choose to base their decisions. So whatever happened to listening to the people that you directly represent, taking a poll of the consensus, figuring out how the majority body of this local school district feels about masks, and then basing your interests and your decisions off of that, and voting there appropriately.
Got a minute.
I think the real that school boards like you have allowed this pandemic to bring with it is the fearful, better safe than sorry approach to life. That's absolutely not how we should be teaching these young, impressionable children to live. That's that anti-American new norm, no personal freedom to choose, can't go to public school without a freaking mask on. That's garbage. And, you just got to stop politicizing our children's faces. You have blinders on if you can't see how pathetic and ridiculous this looks at this point in the game. So I just want to formally request here tonight that on the record in front of everybody that you board members bring forth a motion to completely scrap this outdated and laughably unsustainable metric plan, effective immediately, thus permanently making the wear of mask optional, effective immediately. I hope this request is acknowledged, considered, and granted. Thank you for your time.
All right, and then, thank you, Mr. Witt. And then our last speaker, and the last name is a little hard to read, but it's Alicia, is it Redmond? Okay, thank you.
My name is Alicia Perrone, and I have 4 children, 2 of which are in the school district. I have a 7th grader and a kindergartner. Since I've emailed many times, I think I've received 2 responses. I've sent a video of my kindergartner asking her what she thinks of the masks. And it's funny watching, if any of you actually watch the video, she touches her face probably 40 times in a 3-minute video. Do you think a masks work? A kindergartner who's touching their face? It does not. I actually brought her mask that I finally purchased. This is what I send my daughter to school in.
No one has said anything to my daughter. I have tried to do this with my 7th grader. She fears discipline. She does not want to get in trouble. If you follow the science, nothing is there. My kindergartner, I think someone already spoke on this. They are learning social cues. They are learning their letters, their numbers. They have to watch them out. My daughter comes home and we work on this. As we should at home. This is also a part of her school day. My children have been separated from their normal class. No child should be secluded, should not be taken out of their normal class day. I beg you to take the masks away. That is all I have.
Thank you. And I believe that's it for public voice this evening. So we're going to move on to district reports. Okay. Are there any questions this evening for the board on the district reports?
No, I don't have any additional questions.
I've got a couple things I like to highlight. I like to thank Kim Voyachek and her team and all the teachers that are assisting through a difficult time in December when we lost a couple students to some tragic circumstances. I appreciate you surrounding the community and helping out with that. I really am thankful that we've got Kim and her team and the surrounding teachers in those positions to help our little ones out during those times. I do want to thank a couple employees of the district. I'm on Facebook like everybody else is. I don't comment, but I read and I take notes. And Heather Baldwin, Jennifer Goodrich, Julie Aldridge, Melissa Hazelbaker, and Renee Hamilton. I appreciate you supporting the district and positive communication back to the public with accurate information, trying to head off some things when going a different direction. So I appreciate your input and the accuracy in which you're reporting back from different perspectives that folks on Facebook don't see. So thank you for your continued support with that. I do like I asked Kim, I don't know, is Eric here? Oh, Kim is here. Well, Kim, I didn't know you were here. What I liked about a report with Kim, you're doing some parenting workshops, and I'd like to hear a little bit more about that. Because I thought it was a unique thing to get started, and what kind of support have we had with that and attendance and such?
Apparently it was really great because a parent that works in another school district actually called me to say, I want to do that in our school district. How did you do it? So, and it was really simple. It helps that we have our contract with Nationwide Children's Hospital, and they provide us mental health support in our schools. But they have a wonderful program called Positive Parenting, and they have a kind of a multi-level program that will provide a variety of services to parents. But what we were able to do pretty simply in the school was to actually have the facilitator come out to Indian Trail. We picked 3 of the most relevant. I actually did a survey with the parents and said, these are the topics, what would you like help with? And so we picked the top 3. We scheduled them for 2 Thursday evenings in January and a Tuesday evening in February. And parents had to register. These were small group discussions. We also we're kind of in a challenge, I shouldn't say difficult, but challenging situation because we're split between 2 counties. Nationwide Children's can only serve the Franklin County and a few other counties, families in that program. So they partnered with Fairfield County's family, adult, and child council, and they sent up a facilitator so that if we had Fairfield County families come, then they could still participate. So it was great to participate, to connect with another county's program, and to have 2 facilitators for the group. We also connected with, partnered with C3 Church, who was amazing. We had 2 of their church members who each evening brought dinner for all the families that participated. So the families would come at 5:30, the volunteers would serve the meal, and then they would, at 6 o'clock, parents would go upstairs to a classroom for their class. The children would go to another classroom where we had games and activities for them to play. I had Canal Winchester High School National Honor Society students that came and volunteered, and the kids worked those students hard. They really, it was great. So they kept them busy, and it was nice to connect with the high school. I mean, it was a bunch of partnerships with the community and within our district. We had some staff from Indian Trail and Winchester Trail also come over and help. And I'll just tell you the numbers. So we had 17 parents total attend. There were about 18 children from the ages of 12 months to 10 years that we provided the child care for. There was a total of 10 of the high school students that came to volunteer. We would have like 3 or 4 each evening. So we wouldn't have, too many people. And then we had 5 staff from Indian Trail and Winchester Trail, and custodians were great at Indian Trail. They actually set up the cafeteria for us, so the families could go eat. They were able to spread out to the tables, which, the custodians, of course, never complained about, but they had more cleanup to do, and they were happy to do that. They also adjusted their cleaning schedule in the evening because we were doing it during their work time, and they made sure that where we were going to be was either cleaned first or done after our families left. And that was pretty much it. So, but I feel like it was really successful. I know we'll probably do these every year. There's just one other topic that we didn't cover, which was hassle-free outings, and we'll probably put that out for the spring and just see if any parent wants to do it. We focused on Indian Trail and Winchester Trail because these focus on kids birth to 12 for parents. So I'm looking for things that would be resources for our older kids' parents, because I think that's needed.
What were the 3 topics again?
Oh, yeah, I didn't tell you that. So,
Or did I miss it?
No, I did not tell you. Dealing with disobedience, managing fighting and aggression, and then developing good bedtime routines. So pretty popular among the parents. Everybody kind of benefited from that. So,
Sure.
But yeah, that was it.
Thank you. Appreciate
Sure.
you clearing it up for me. I had questions. That's good.
Are there any other questions about the district report this evening? Okay, all right. And next we're going to move on to our consent agenda. So I'm going to need a motion on the consent agenda this evening.
So moved.
Second.
Motion and second. And Mrs. Hunt?
Okay, thank you. Number 1, we have the minutes from the January 10th regular and organizational meetings. Number 2, we do have 2 donations. There we go, 2 donations. One for $20,000 from the Berkshire Hathaway Eastern Gas Transmission and Storage. And that donation is towards the high school bleacher update project, where we will be bringing the bleachers into ADA compliance. And the second is $1,000 from Brock Strong Foundation to the high school drug-free club. Number 3 is our certified personnel. We do have a couple leave of absences. We have 2 teacher recommendations, Stacy Abrams and Jordan Achterman. Both are at the high school. One of those is due to a resignation, and the other is a new position. We are asking to approve a home instructor, and we have a stipend adjustment. Actually, the stipend, sorry, it keeps clicking out. Got a lot of use tonight. The stipend is a recension. We incorrectly had a middle school instrumental music instructor on there. We actually approved 2 in June. We caught it, so we're resending 1. Number 4 is our classified personnel. You'll notice we have several resignations. And then we are hiring Karen Augenstein, who will be our new building secretary at the high school. Her first day was today, so she started with us today, and that was due to a resignation. We have several substitute, 2 bus drivers and 2 custodians that we're asking you to approve, and our mental health intern. And then last, we're moving on to supplemental personnel. We have middle school softball coach and a volunteer for lacrosse.
Any questions for Mrs. Hunt this evening on the consent agenda?
How many open positions do we have for teaching staff?
For teaching staff, I believe for teaching staff, we do not have any openings for the current year. We do have building subs posted, but we have been unable to fill those positions.
And how many open positions do we have for building subs?
Let me see. I believe Indian Trail, we do not have one. I think we hired Winchester Trail. We hired the high school, and middle school could still be open. We're always looking for subs, of course, but building sub would be somebody that works every day for the hours. So that's what we're struggling to find, is those individuals who are able to work. We don't have subs. I mean, we're just struggling with getting subs.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Does anyone have anything else for Mrs. Hunt this evening? Okay. I have a motion and second, so Mr. Roberts?
Mr. Krueger?
Yes.
Ms. Talley?
Yes.
Ms. Barnes?
Yes.
Mr. Butler?
Yes.
George?
Yes.
Motion passes 5-0. And now we're going to move into our action items. So first up is the mass metric. So the recommended action is a motion to eliminate the mass metric per the superintendent recommendation, excuse me. So, sorry, Jim. All right, so anyway.
Sure, if you
Per
want that.
the superintendent's recommendation, sorry. So obviously, this has been a hot topic item, so first off, I'm gonna need a motion on action item number 1.
So move.
Okay.
Second.
So I have a motion and I have a second. Okay. All right, so. Don't everyone speak at once. Huh?
Well, at this point, I don't have anything to add to everything that's been said. I agree with the recommendation by Mr. Sotler to remove the mass metric. I think it's carried us to the point where we got to today. I think it was necessary. Things are changing, and we need to adapt and change with this as well. So it was nice to see. We get emails. It was nice to see James, Paul, Michael, and Alicia. Appreciate you showing up. Nice to put a face with an email, so thank you.
I guess I'll go next. I am not opposed to eliminating the mass metrics. What I feel that we should focus on and make our decisions is based upon ensuring that we can keep our students and staff in school safely. So I just would like to pay close attention to reinforcing the other mitigation strategies that the district should be in full compliance, such as making sure that students are hand washing, sanitizing, physically distancing whenever possible, staying home when you're sick, those kinds of measures. I just want to make sure that our district would be paying full close attention to those and supporting that and making sure that that's happening every day. And then I know that we approved the, is it Prevent X 24/7, I think? So we're still utilizing that.
Correct.
You know, just all of those practices. I just wanted to reiterate that we would still, you know, ensure that those strategies are still happening.
Do you know when the last time we used that, or when the next time it's going to be?
It's every other month now.
It is, okay.
Mhm.
So we are active, yeah.
So it was always a 60-day, but now they're doing it down to 60-day, but we were doing it every 30 days.
Okay.
And so now it's moving on to 60 days. So,
And
yeah, a lot of those strategies we plan to keep in place as best as we possibly can. The social distancing is hard because
Right.
school buildings weren't designed for it, but
right.
I mean, just for anything else, hand washing, sanitizing, we should be doing that anyway. There's been a lot of other stuff.
We're
What about
cleaning every day. The 24/7
Yeah.
is just it's supposed to put the filter on for
Filter
90
on,
days.
yeah.
We're cleaning every
Every
day.
day, yeah.
Just
Okay.
that particular stage of the cleaning is supposed to last for 90 days, or you're not supposed to be able to get the germs off of. I just want to make that clear that we're not waiting 60 days to
Yeah, the clean,
everything.
yeah, it's not cleaning, it's a protectant, yeah.
Okay. So what about the testing kits? Are those still available at the schools to send home?
Yes,
and
we have
things like
testing
that?
kits at school. Mike, do you know how many we have now? We just,
I'm going to be picking up some more tomorrow, but I think we've probably got over 1,000 in district. So,
So I just wanted to say, you know, I'm fine with moving towards a mask recommended option, but just be aware, be vigilant of those other practices because you know, this virus is still here and we want to try to ensure safety as much as possible in our everyday activities, so.
So I would say, I mean, I looked at school districts, adjoining school districts, one that had no mask mandate all year, one that's had a mask mandate for K to 6 in the first semester, and then no mask mandate starting in January. And I compared those, and I looked at a school district that's had mask mandate all year. And, you know, when you look at that and look at the percentage, the positive percentage of students, it really makes no difference. When we're wearing masks, when we're not wearing masks, the school districts, you know, as a percentage of the students in each school district, you know, we were very low through most of the first semester, except for right at the beginning. We all had a blow up right at the start of the second semester. We all came down really fast on the same track. So, you know, masks aren't making a difference. You know, so agree with you, Mr. Sotler. It's time to just understand we're going to have to live with this. There'll be a next variant out next month or the month after that. And, you know, it's on us as a district, Mr. Sotler, on you and your building administrators to kind of keep track of what's going on in the schools and do what we're doing without masks, take the masks off.
Guess I'm lost.
I'm sorry. I do have one question. Do you have a sense, Mr. Sotler, of the number of students that are vaccinated and or have had a previous COVID exposure in the school? Do we have a sense of what that number looks like?
well, we have the numbers from our positive cases. I think we're up at close to 600 positive cases that we know of just within the school. Now, that's all year.
Yeah.
And 234 of them were from last month.
Yeah.
So we're under 50%. We're right around 50% of least students that received at least their first vaccination.
Okay.
Well, one thing I wanted to say before we moved on is, through the course of this year, one of the focuses has been on in-person learning. And one thing I want to acknowledge, I know our teachers do a fantastic job, and I want to make sure I acknowledge them. But one of the unsung heroes to this whole last 2 school years have been our parents and their ability to get our kids to school, and then their willingness to be flexible with us. Last year at hybrid learning, I know that was a challenge. And myself as a special education teacher, I kind of felt that in the classroom every day. And then going throughout the course of this year, the one thing I will say, and I want to acknowledge the parents out there who have been flexible with us, whether that be with bus delays, getting kids to school. I know we've had changes with the mask mandate policy, and I want to say that with them being flexible with us, I'm inclined to be flexible with them. And it's important for them to feel that they have a stake in the decisions that their children, affects their health decisions and and that of their children. So one thing that I've been taking into account is the fact that our parents have been awesome this school year and been flexible with us. So at this point, I'm inclined to be flexible with them and to put the onus back on them as far as the decisions they make for their children. So I just want those people out there listening to be aware that I know this has been a challenging year, but your emails, the phone calls, your voices have been heard. I know I've heard them, and I want to make sure I take the time to acknowledge those and let those people know out there that I do respect your opinions, and I believe as a board we respect you, and hopefully after we make our decision this evening, that will be clearly stated through our decision-making process. But I just wanted to take the time to acknowledge those parents out there today, particularly coming to these board meetings. I've been sitting in them for 6 or 7 years. I know this isn't the most fun way to spend your Monday night, but at the same time, the responsibility coming up here and advocating for your children is very important. So I really respect what you are doing, and obviously all your opinions have been taken into account. So whatever decision is made this evening, I just want those parents to know that they've been heard. So I truly do appreciate you speaking this evening. And that's all I really have to say.
What I'd like to say is, as a new school board member, and because I just started, everybody probably already knows what my opinion was about masks at the beginning and throughout the school year. While I do believe that parents have a right to parent their kids, I also don't believe that they have a right to impose health issues on other children who may have issues in school. But that said, I also have observed and watched the community and watched things going on in the community. As you can see, I don't have a mask on today. I wondered if there's something that I didn't know, because I've been to several school board meetings and I have seen everybody in here without mask on, and I've been to other school board meetings where it's random. So I thought, well, maybe, and I've seen some people who consistently worn their masks at every school board meeting. I've been to football games, I've been to basketball games, and I've seen our administrators and our staff without masks on, and I've seen our teachers without masks on, and I've seen all of our kids in the stands without masks on. I guess I agree with the parents from the aspect of in our community, we're not wearing masks consistently. If we're going to impose masks, we should have imposed it for every event, anything going on at the school buildings, in the school buildings, to keep our kids safe. With the numbers of 600 plus, that's a lot of kids sick. That's a lot of kids out of school. It's our responsibility as a board to make sure that our kids are at school, in school, and learning. I've had several of my own kids out of school several times and they were sick. They got sick from school. I know they didn't go very many other places. And the difference to me, I don't know a lot of the science. I'm not a doctor. I have no idea, about different studies and all that. But I do know that the different variants of COVID have affected people differently. I've lost family members. I've lost very close friends. And so it is real. And it's real in various different ages. And yes, I have grandkids who've had it and never shown a symptom, where I've had other grandkids who've had symptoms and been fine, like it's a cold. So why one works one way and one works another, I have no idea. But it's not my job to impose my health conditions on another person if there's anything I can do to help it. And if that means working with sanitizer, mask, whatever. At the beginning when we had this issue, I do believe masks were helping. The variant of Omicron, I don't think it helped. I don't think no matter what we would have done, a mask was helping. That's my opinion. I'm not a doctor. But I do agree that it's time to take them off. We have various different things we can do now. And if a person is not choosing to vaccinate, I have older kids who won't vaccinate. And there's nothing I can do to make them. So we have a way to do it. We have kids from kindergarten on up. They can be vaccinated now, and it's the parents' choice or decision to do that. It's also their choice or decision to put on a mask if they want. If we change the rule with regards to the school board and say that they're optional, if you're a parent who you're still worried about it, you have a choice to wear a mask if you want to do that. So I'm definitely in favor with the superintendent on, removing masks now because of making it optional, because it's not making a difference right now with the health of our kids, and because you have the ability to get vaccinated if you so choose. What I'm more concerned about is if the numbers are going to jump up really high, or I'm also concerned about how many of our kids haven't been vaccinated and what we're doing to push for the other 50% of our kids to get vaccinated in order to keep the numbers down. Do we have anything that we're doing right now, Mr. Sotler, to promote that even more than what we're doing now if we remove the mandate?
Yeah, the county's not doing the mass vaccination sites like they are doing now. We had 2 of them earlier, one last year, one this year. Maybe 100 and some kids showed up altogether for that. So we're giving information out to parents. We can't force them to do that. So the information's out there, and there are places that give vaccinations all over now. Just got to make an appointment and go. So.
And if we make it optional in the schools, does it still require them to have them on the buses?
Transportation, yes, that's a federal guideline.
Okay.
Yep, we can't do anything about that. So this is not including transportation.
Just want to make sure that it's clear.
Yep. And the number is 582 since the start of the school year.
And just to be clear, Mr. Sotler, we obviously have it on here. Obviously, this is per the superintendent's recommendation. We don't have an effective date on there, so when we're talking about this, I think right now, I guess the decision is whatever we decide to vote on, the timeline obviously needs to be in there. So per your recommendation, is that going to be effective immediately? Is there a date that you're recommending?
The board districts have done it differently. You could go through the end of February. You can do it tonight and end it tomorrow. So it's what the board feels comfortable doing, what they think is best for our community, for our kids.
Okay. So I did have a motion. So just to get, I know Mr. Kruger and then Mr. George, I know obviously I got a motion and a second from you, so I guess.
You want to put a date with that motion?
Yeah, I think that would be important. So whatever we vote on, it'll be concrete. So, our community has an idea of what the exact date is going to be. If we decide to do it.
I mean, so I'd like to change the motion that right now we're in mask required as a district, but I'd say as of this vote, I would like to go mask recommended.
Effective immediately.
Effective as soon as the vote happens.
So you want to eliminate the mass metric, though. You have to, because
eliminate the mass metrics.
The mass metric is in place. You guys voted on that, so you want to eliminate the mass metric, go to mass recommended effective date immediately.
It's got a line.
Yes.
It's got a line.
Yeah.
Okay. So I just put the word immediately on there, but I just wanted to be clear for those people who are watching at home, and obviously for people out there in the community who are curious about what exactly is going on. So then that way they don't walk away with any uncertainty, because I know communication is important at this point. So the more our parents know, obviously, the better decisions they can make for their children. So right now, obviously, Mr. Kruger, I know you made the motion. So right now, I'm going to write in the date effective immediately.
Okay.
Okay. And then put the date. I wasn't sure if Mr. George or anybody else had any input on this one before we moved on.
No, I agree.
Okay. I just wanted to make sure because I know you seconded it, so I didn't want to move forward if you didn't feel comfortable.
Yep.
Okay. So right now, obviously, the recommended action is a motion to eliminate the mass metric per the superintendent's recommendation, effective immediately. And then I have a motion on that for Mr. Kruger, and then I have a second for Mr. George. Yes.
And just to clarify, it does not include transportation, because that's a federal
But
guideline.
we can't change.
We can't change that.
Okay.
And we're going to go to mass recommended, like we
Yep.
have done at the beginning.
In the
of
buildings.
Yep.
Okay.
Campus.
So before we call for a vote, are there any other comments, questions for the superintendent before we move on? I didn't want to make anybody feel like they were rushed. Okay. All right. Well, no other questions. Mr. Roberts?
Mr. Kruger?
Yes.
Mr. George?
Yes.
Ms. Barnes?
Yes.
Mr. Butler?
Yes.
Ms. Talley?
Yes.
Motion carries 5-0. And we're going to move on to our start and end times for schools. Okay?
We're wearing them anyway.
So I'm going to need a motion on the change of start and end times of the school buildings due to transportation and personnel shortages effective March 7th of 2022. So I'm going to need a motion on action item number 2.
So move.
And I'll second that motion. Okay. So does anybody have any questions or comments on action item number 2, which again is our start and end times to our schools? I know Mr. Seiler talked about that quite a bit, and Mr. Bruning came up here. So is there any other additional questions or comments on action item number 2? Okay. All right. With Mr. Roberts?
Mr. Krueger?
Yes.
Mr. Butler?
Yes.
Ms. Talley?
No.
Mr. George?
Yes.
Ms. Barnes?
Yes.
Okay, motion passes 4-1. And we're gonna move on to action item number 3, which is payment in lieu of transportation.
So move.
Sorry, we need a motion, and it's Krueger, and then I'll second that motion.
We have one additional student that is going to be getting paid for transportation services. We identified the list before, and we're going to add this student at this time, and I think it might be the last one that we do this on, or, so.
They trickle in all the
They
time.
trickle in all the time, so just a routine item, just adding one more.
Okay. Does anyone have any questions for Mr. Roberts or Mr. Solomon about action item number 3? Okay, if not, Mr. Roberts?
Mr. Krueger?
Yes.
Mr. Butler?
Yes.
Ms. Barnes?
Yes.
George?
Yes.
Ms. Talley?
Yes.
Okay, motion passes 5-0. And then we're going to move on to action item number 4, which is to accept amended tax amounts and rates. So I'm going to need a motion this evening on action item number 4.
So moved.
Second.
The Franklin County Auditor sent a request to amend the tax rates. It was just minimal. It was like 0.1 mil on one of the levies. They set the rates, they set the amounts that we're collecting. They just needed to amend. So it's kind of a routine thing. We approved the tax rates back in January, I think. So just a small amendment to the tax levy. The Budget Commission has to certify the amendment.
Okay. Anyone have any additional questions for Mr. Roberts about action item number 4?
Nope.
Okay. If not, Mr. Roberts?
Ms. Talley?
Yes.
Mr. George?
Yes.
Mr. Krueger?
Yes.
Mr. Butler?
Yes.
Ms. Barnes?
Yes.
Okay, motion passes 5-0. And then moving on to section H, executive session. Is there a need to enter executive session this evening?
I have a question, and I'm not sure where it should be discussed at, but I wanted to discuss the interview process, and I'm not sure where we should look, where that should fall into the agenda.
Well, we usually will have those conversations first, and then we can, so.
Is that an executive session or now?
Yeah, executive
Yeah.
session.
Okay, thank you.
All right, so, all right. So with
There's
that,
no need for executive session tonight.
okay.
That's something we can have, unless you want to go into it.
I want to discuss it.
Yeah.
Okay.
You can
So,
motion.
You
need a motion.
You got a need-
a motion,
Executive
can I,
session.
what do I need to put, a motion to discuss it in an executive session?
Yeah.
Oh, motion,
Executive session.
I have a motion to move into executive session.
And then if you need board members to approve it.
Okay, so I have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay, Barnes, and I have a second for Mr. George. All right, so, Mr. Roberts?
Ms. Barnes?
There,
No,
We're gonna go ahead and
we're
vote.
voting.
We're gonna
Executive
go vote.
session is,
yes.
Yep. Okay,
Oh, it's just
George?
said my name.
Mr. Butler?
yes.
Mr. Krueger?
Yes.
Ms. Talley?
Yes.
Okay.
we won't discuss it now,
Time will we
so.
enter?
We're gonna enter into executive session this evening at 9:09. So we're gonna, sorry, well, actually, I guess I should have read the whole thing. So we have a motion to enter an executive session to consider the appointment, employment, dismissal, discipline, promotion, demotion, or compensation of a public employee or official. So it was motioned by Mrs. Barnes and seconded by Mr. George, and the motion passed 5-0, and we are going to enter into executive session at 9:09 this evening.
We're not going to make any decision,
No
so
decision.
can we end the,
We'll end the, yes.
we don't need to come back to close out the meeting. after executive
We'll
session.
still come back.
We'll still come back, we'll just close it out. that's
But there
all.
won't be any additional,
Yeah, there won't be anything
yeah,
additional.
okay.
All right.
And actually, we'll just stay right here since everyone left.
We'll use the restroom.